You've got something weighing heavily on your mind and thus decide to tell a story with a message. But how to effectively do that? Welcome to my channel, KC. That's me, Carrie Chug, the Sledge Storyteller, here to talk about the wonderful world of storytelling, to open up discussion about how we can tell the best stories we possibly can. So every story to one degree or another has a moral. Maybe a story depicting a paragon hero who may inspire you to aspire to higher ideals, or on the other end of the spectrum, a trivial gag comedy may well depict some jerk who gives you an idea of how not to behave. But the story may be meant to stimulate one's thinking in a direction that you may have never have thought of. It may be social, political, cultural, or spiritual. Here are principles I believe in to make it work. Number 1, be subtle. A frequent other way of putting it, don't be heavy-handed about it. Make it part of the overall character and plot experience. Arguably, 70s and 80s cartoons suffered from having to do it that way. It's well known that during those days there was a lot of push by parental groups that watered down the action and made sure positive messages were included. You take time to watch action cartoons from that area, there's very little violence, and public service announcements separate from the story were often depicted. I still sort of have a soft spot for some of those messages, but they had little to do with my enjoyment of the story. Think about the lesson we get in patience in The Empire Strikes Back. Luke goes eagerly to Dagobah in search of Yoda, only to realize almost too late that he had met him earlier than anticipated, and his arrogance was making him flunk Yoda's patience test. And it takes more than just depicting a character's vice to help the message come. We have to observe examples like Luke's impatience and practice implementing that to get the message across. Number 2, don't let the message get lost in the story. So one big example of that happening is Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. So I know I'm not alone in seeing Christopher Reeve as the personification of Superman, and he makes Superman 4 much more watchable than it should be. That said, the first mistake he made here was coming up with a story where Superman gets involved in world politics by ridding the world of nuclear weapons. His second mistake was having him make such a bold move only to have it be all but forgotten by the last third of the story. Now you could argue that Supes helped create the bigger problem by throwing the nuke into the sun that birthed Nuclear Man, and in Superman's final speech he admits that he didn't bring in peace by destroying all nuclear weapons, and that peace will come when people want it so badly that their governments will have no choice but to give it to them. So how many people do you think were converted to being anti-nuclear weapons after watching this? But back to Empire Strikes Back. Luke's impatience continues to be an issue when he interrupts his Jedi training, held captive by Darth Vader, only to arrive there and find himself way out of his league against the Sith Lord. Is it any surprise that Empire Strikes Back is widely considered to be the best Star Wars movie ever? Number 3, if your message carries an argument, do your research. A message loses steam when it includes inaccurate facts. Take, for instance, the MASH episode, Dear Dad 3. So here we see a wounded soldier played by 70s and 80s character actor Mills Watson requesting Hawkeye that he get white man's blood, not the darky stuff, as he put it. Then toward the end, Hawkeye and Trapper tell him about Dr. Charles Drew, who invented the process of separating blood from plasma. In 1950, he was severely injured in a car accident in North Carolina and was refused admission to a hospital that was for whites only and bled to death. And the very website for Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science, we get the following statement. In the words of his widow, everything was done in his fight for life by the medical staff. However, it was too late to save him. Now, in several of my past videos, I have voiced my disgust with racism, and if you read up on Charles Drew, you'll find that he was indeed a key contributor to the development of medical science. I am also a huge fan of MASH, but the assumed notion of his dying due to racism is an example of not making a real effort to get the right facts. Number 4, be balanced. Now, related to number 3, you look at comics published during World War II and you see the evils of the Axis powers depicted in lampooning fashion. It's interesting now to see such movies as Letters from Iwo Jima and the Valkyrie nowadays that show things from the perspective of the Axis side in a way that humanizes them. It's no longer simply Allied versus Axis equals good guys versus bad guys. Even outside of historical depictions, people don't want black hat villains, and even the Nazis weren't necessarily that. My emphasis here is don't ignore the humanity where it exists on either side of the issue. And lastly, something I see as relevant for this day and age and a view that I take complete ownership of. Number 5, let it be your message. Now, as of late, what seems to be making things toxic in society is making schools of opinion factional. Very few want to give a message without it being an earmark of which side of a political aisle they're on. But in the midst of current social strife, I want to start seeing messages given that are independent of politics. Who knows if anyone watching this who doesn't know me personally has an idea of my political leanings. But I never wanted my reasoning in a social talk to be about political, but in human interest. Let's look for common ground under our individual insight rather than just going with whatever mob mentality is out there and what it's supposed to get us. So tell your story. That's my insight on making a statement in a story. Agree, disagree, or something I left out. Please let me know in the comments section below. If you like this video, please click like. If you like this channel, please click subscribe or follow me on Instagram. The link to order Sledge #1 is below the description, as always, where you can order it on Kindle. Let's all look for civility amid all the bad news out there about social and political strife, as well as the pandemic. We're getting that much closer. More and more people are getting vaccinated. When you get the opportunity, please get vaccinated and follow the precautions that have been given to us by the experts. Thanks for watching. Everyone, be safe and God bless.